Welcome to the Authors Studio, BookExpo America 2013 in New York City. We're sitting with author Pam Popper, and she's written a book called Food Over Medicine. Now, I'm guessing when you say food over medicine, you don't mean food and then medicine, you mean make that choice, right?
Yes, exactly. You'd be much better off eating well, by my definition, to prevent, stop, and reverse disease than eating, drinking, and being merry, hoping that the medical system will save you later on when you develop the diseases that people in our country develop.
You know, it's a good time for that. We're learning more and more that what you put into your body is what really you are. You are what you eat, I guess is the old term. But our body gives us messages, gives us signals as to whether or not we're eating well, doesn't it?
It does. And one of the most visible symbols of the fact that we're not eating well is the obesity epidemic that we're experiencing. Look around. Most people in this country are overweight, and a growing number of them are obese. And that is a sign that something is terribly wrong with your diet. Humans, when they eat the right diet for humans, do not become overweight or obese. And of course, the other signs that we get that things aren't going so well from a diet perspective are the epidemic of diabetes, cancer, degenerative diseases like coronary artery disease, lupus, and other autoimmune diseases. I mean, 2/3 of the people in this country are taking a pharmaceutical drug for something like that right now.
What inspired you to write about this particular subject? Anything in your personal life?
Well, fortunately, no. A lot of times you hear stories about people like me discovering that they need to pay attention to their diet because they become dreadfully ill. That didn't happen for me. I wasn't even that overweight when I found out about this. But
family member, friend, anybody?
I read a book 17 years ago about a doctor, written by a doctor, who had been reversing disease with diet for then 25 years, much longer now.
Piqued your interest?
It piqued my interest. And I reached two conclusions at the end of the book. The first one was that, why didn't everybody know about this? And the second one, I want to be the one to tell everybody about it. And so that was my inspiration many, many years ago. And I've just been gradually building a company, getting the word out about this type of thing, helping people recover their health for the last 17 years. And got to the place at one point where I realized that to tell the story in a bigger way, you had to make a movie, write a book, all of the above. I did all of that, actually.
But it's one thing to educate people on what they should be doing. It's another thing to get them to do it.
Right.
I've always felt that the biggest problem with things like obesity, eating the wrong foods, whatever, is a lack of willpower, a lack of self-discipline. How important is that to doing what you're suggesting?
Not at all. In fact, if
really?
it were...
So I'm totally wrong is what you're telling me.
Well, not
okay.
maybe in those terms, but if self-discipline and willpower were what made this happen, I don't have the self-discipline and willpower to stay away from chocolate. I think we have 3 or 4 things that are a big issue. And the first one is you have to show people how to set up their environment in order to facilitate good instead of bad choices. In other words, I'm considered one of the world's leading experts on the subject of diet and health, but if my house was filled with potato chips and chocolate and ice cream, I'm going to stand in the kitchen and try not to eat it. I mean...
Yeah, but you have to have the self-discipline at the grocery store not to buy it.
Well, but that's easier because you don't spend as much time in the grocery store as you do in your house, all right? You make one good decision a week and then you can make 100 good decisions for the rest of the week. But I think the second thing, particularly when it comes to motivating people to do this, is when you have with them what I consider the informed consent discussion. And this isn't going on in doctors' offices today. And let me give you an example. I ask this all the time when I give lectures. What is the risk reduction that you get? Risk of having a serious heart attack, something like that, if you take a drug like Crestor for your cholesterol? And people don't really know. And I tell them, well, it's 1.6% according to the manufacturer. That's how much you reduce your risk of a heart attack. People are flabbergasted, right? They think that they're really helping themselves by taking statin drugs.
That's a small percentage.
It's virtually meaningless. And then let me show you the 20 pages of side effects. And do you really think that it's worth that, the risk that you're taking the drug? Now let's talk about the ability of diet, what diet can do for you. And most of the time, diet can at the very least stop the progression of your disease and in many instances reverse it. Now how do you feel about changing your diet? It's a completely different discussion. And so I've always said if people went into their doctor to see their doctor when they first developed some sign of illness, whether it's being 20 pounds overweight or their cholesterol is high or they're developing arthritis pain, the doctor said, look, I can give you drugs for this. Let me show you what they do for you. Not much. Let me show you the side effects. Or I can put you on a diet that you can live on for the rest of your life. You'll love it. We'll show you how to do it. It's delicious. You'll never be hungry. And we'll fix this and we'll keep a whole lot of other problems from happening too. Now, which would you like to do? I know there are people who might opt for the drug and we should give it to them. We live in America. But my experience has been most people will say, you know what, I think I'd at least like to give this diet a try.
All right, I'll never bring up willpower again, I promise.
Okay.
This is not your first rodeo. This is not your first book, is it?
No.
What have you done before?
Well, I co-authored I was one of the contributing authors to the Forks Over Knives companion book, which was based on the film, very popular. It was on the New York Times list for a long time. And then before that, I self-published a lot of books. My most recent, before Forks Over Knives, was Solving America's Healthcare Crisis, which was actually the story of my life, my career, my views on everything from school nutrition to government policy, etc. And then before that, I wrote a lot of books on very specific topics, like books on attention deficit disorder, women's health, children's health, etc.
So this is your first book being published by somebody other than you.
Well, the Forks Over Knives book was the first, and then this is my first, like, all by myself. You know.
Tell everybody, for those who have yet to hook up with a publishing company, who have been self-publishing, tell everybody the difference between the two.
It's huge, and I really recommend going with a publisher. And I saw that when we did the Forks Over Knives book. Publisher can do so much more for you than you can do for yourself. I'm fairly well known, and so I do sell a lot of books just because of people knowing who I am. But the difference between when I was doing it myself versus when the publisher got involved, we're talking, what, 250,000 more books sold. That's a lot.
Nice.
Plus, you know, here we are at this phenomenal event, and I could never have pulled this off on my own.
Have you been here before?
No, my first time.
What do you think?
Wow. It's fabulous. I mean, I'm like a kid in the candy store because I love books anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sort of like a nerd.
Christmas in July, huh? All these free books floating around?
I know. And authors and, you know, every place you look there are books. So, yeah, I think it's fabulous.
And now, how can people find the book?
Well, first of all, it'll be in all booksellers. You can order it on Amazon. They're going to start shipping books in a couple of weeks. And, of course, I'll be signing books here, and I'll be on the road promoting the book, too. I have a lot of lectures scheduled this year.
Beautiful. Pam, what's next? What are you going to write next?
I have a couple of ideas. I'd like to write a different kind of book on women's health. And one of the reasons is because I think women often do not take their health seriously. They do in certain respects. They're more likely to go to a doctor than men are, but they really don't do a lot of self-care, always postponing it in the interest of doing something for somebody else. And I think they do this at their own peril.
They want to nurture everybody else. They don't want to nurture themselves.
Yeah. And in some cases I contend, and this is a highly controversial statement to make, but I think I can back it up. So you'll have to read my next book.
We can edit it out if you like.
No, but I think sometimes it almost becomes an excuse. I can't exercise. I have kids. Okay, well, yeah, you can. Lots of people with children exercise, you know, and I can't eat well.
It's not about finding the time, it's about making the time.
It's about making the time, and it's about really prioritizing in your life and deciding that you're important. We are all important, and you know something? Health is the most important thing in the world. If you don't have that, not much else matters.
No, that's true. Pam Popper, thank you very much. Once again, the book is called Food Over Medicine. Pam, nice to see you.
Thank you.